am Dr. Veronica Honeycutt, the CEO of the Honeycutt Foundation, and I want to welcome you on this lovely day to our event. Okay, you are going to learn quite a bit about your money. You're going to learn quite a bit about your spiritual well-being and health. Okay, and you're just going to have an opportunity to just speak about your issues and your concerns. So I welcome you. Thank you so much for being here. I'd like to introduce you to the members of the Honeycutt Foundation team. Did someone say something? Oh, well, that's okay. Outbursts don't bother me. Okay. No, I worked for 45 years with students. So, I've seen all there is to see, okay? And more. And loved it and straightened them out as quickly as possible.
And she did.
And now Connie Hector, who was at City College of San Francisco, was one of our officers. She knew what I did. Okay, so if you would come into the class dancing and talking silly, that foolishness stopped quickly. I didn't call Connie. Okay, God gave me the words. Okay. All right, so folks, I just want to let you know I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. The Honeycutt Foundation team consists of Dr. Joe Canton, this wonderful gentleman in the front, whom everyone knows, Mary Rivers, my administrative assistant, consultant, straighten me up when I want to go off the page and do something that my grant will not allow. Woman. Okay, she's laughing. And because this is a family foundation, the young lady in the back, Tia Honeycutt, my daughter, is also a member of the foundation, as is my eldest grandson, Trevor Honeycutt. So it is my pleasure to introduce John Withers. He's a senior pastor of New Hope Community Church in South San Francisco. He's been pastoring for 20 years. I had the opportunity to go to his celebration for his 20-year anniversary, and it was wonderful to see all of these marvelous people just loving on him, including Pastor Wade and his lady at that event. He's been in various areas of ministry for over 30 years. He assists and he enjoys assisting couples, families, and individuals in resolving conflict while establishing boundaries to effectively communicate. He has been able to implement 3 major components to assist people in their challenging issues of life, and they are spiritual, psychological, and practical. Now, all of his accomplishments, it would take me another 30 minutes to go through this, but I'm going to let you know this man is extremely competent. He was my former student at City College of San Francisco. Yes, I know you're looking at me. I told you I was old as dirt. God keeps holding me up, okay? But he was one of my students, and I'll never forget him. He was so on target that when I called the roll and his name wasn't on the roll, he came up to me. I said, "Baby, don't worry about it. I'll take care of you. Just have a seat," or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. Now, he wants to claim that I helped him as he moved on to get all these master's degrees. So all these degrees he's got. An MA degree in marriage and family counseling from Santa Clara University in Santa Clara, California. He went back and did a lot of work. But that's because God helped him and he was motivated to do the work. I would like to see more people be like him and thus be like all of you as well. Okay, so without any further ado, by the way, this is important. He is serving as the presbyter of the San Francisco and Peninsula section of his church. He oversees numerous pastors in churches of the Assemblies of God and has since been appointed as the executive presbyter presbyter, overseeing a region of pastors and churches in Northern California. So his work is cut out for him. Pastor John Withers.
Thank you. This is a great woman. I am extremely humble to be here this morning amongst all of you, and it's just a privilege and an honor. And I got to say this, Sister Honeycutt, if you put on something like this, as first class as this from now on, we all got to do better in bringing more people, including myself, because to do something this professional, it's a lot of work that is required, and people are missing some great nuggets that you have given us here or will given us here today. I just stopped by the tables and just saw some of the information, and I thought, gee whiz, if I had some of this stuff, 20, 30 years ago, I would never lift another hand again except go around and give it out. You know what I mean? That's just the case in point. Well, I'm going to stand right here. Is this going to be fine? Okay. I'm going to go through this. Let me just say this right here. I'm really honored, and I don't know if any of you in this room who are old enough to remember Elizabeth Taylor. She was one of the great actresses of Hollywood back in the day. She had violet eyes, and I don't think there's never been another actress that has ever been born that had violet eyes. She was a gorgeous woman. However, she was married 8 times. 8, you hear that? And so, and during the 8th husband, and this is what I'm going to tell you, during the 8th husband, she told him, don't worry, I'm not going to keep you long. So I'm going to tell you this today, don't worry, you're not going to see me long, okay? So, now why do I have this picture up here? We're going to talk a little bit about the mind and what's going on and whatnot, and that you're going to be guiding this, right? So I don't even have to open my book here. So let's start with the brain. Let me just first have a word of prayer. Father, I thank you for the people that are here. I am humble to be here this morning, Lord, because I know that my sister and her entire staff could have chose anyone else. But I pray that you would give us wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And Lord, more importantly, Lord, that you would give us ears to hear and listen to what you have for each and every one of us here today. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So let's start with the mind. And let me go with this right here, starting with, we all are familiar with the scripture in Romans 12, 1 and 2. What the scriptures say, I beseech you, but it's mainly saying in the Greek, I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. So I come to a conclusion. I have a master's in psychology. I come to a conclusion that, and we all know this now, that the limit system is the mood and everything that we have changed or remembered from our past to now. And so if it's good, it'll come up. If it's bad, it'll come up. So there are some things in life you and I cannot will away. We can pray for God to give us strength. But how many of you know, some things in life, you have got to just do it. And you have to work on it. I've never met, listen, during the pandemic, I was up to 235 pounds. That was the heaviest that I had ever been in my life. I didn't even know it until I got on the scale. I was walking every day, but I was going back home and eating all the calories twice over because I didn't have anything else to do. And I would say, Lord, you got to get this weight off. I'm doing the best that I can. And I heard a little voice say this right here. Hey, brother, you got to work a little hard and push away from the table. And so I did that, but we have to renew our mind and change our thought processes in order to make sure that there's going to be some change in our life. When I started back to school, I was 37 years old. That's old to go back to school for some people. And I saw Dr. Honeycutt. And she was very impressive to me because I hadn't seen any black professors. But she was there. She was a person of color, and I related to her. But I realized that I had come to a place, I had been on my job for 17 years. I ended up staying there for 25 years. And I realized that if I didn't do something now, that my kids were not going to go to college. And that they were going to be smarter than me. And I said, I cannot have my children smarter than me. So I went back to school and I started on this journey. I went to school, worked full-time, raised a family, and did church for 12 straight years. It was a mindset. And I said that I wasn't going to stop until I get a master's degree. Well, I went on to City College, to San Francisco State, got an undergrad in English Lit and a minor in speech and communications. And then I went to the seminary because I always wanted to go to seminary. I wanted to go to seminary so badly that I went down to apply and they said, do you have an undergrad? I said, what's that? I didn't even know what it was. They said, you need to go back to school and do your undergrad and then come back and see us. And that's exactly what I did. I went back and I saw the guy who was doing all the signing up, and he said, I remember you 4 or 5 years ago. I said, I'm back. I'm ready to go to seminary. It took me another 5 years to go to seminary to get the MD of Divinity, Masters of Divinity. And then I went straight from there to Santa Clara because I knew that there was people who were asking me about marriage that I didn't have the tools for. You see, here's what I realized. If you can get your mental state aligned with your spiritual state, most of your problems will dissipate. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Okay. If you can get your mental state aligned with your spiritual state, most of your problems will dissipate. And that's the God knows truth, because you can have your mental state in a good form, but your spiritual state is way out there. You're going to be off of balance. You can have your spiritual state on top notch, but your mental state is haywire. You're still going to be whacked. You need them both to align up with each other. Let's go to the next slide. Look, whatever a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That's what God says. So we got to watch and be careful about what we think, because everything starts with what's in our brain. And you have the ability to change it at any given moment. You know, I was at my church one afternoon, and I can see out of my window the planes taking off at the airport on a clear day. And I began to think, I said, my God, what if that plane is so low? What if that plane was to crash right now? And I said, man, where is that thought coming from? I dismissed that thought right away. I said, God, forgive me for even thinking of that thought. And I let it go. You see, whatsoever you think it begins to get in your heart. Let's go to the next one. This proverb emphasizes the impact of our thoughts and the beliefs of our actions and character. It will suggest that what's in our heart will direct our thoughts and shape our behavior, and therefore will define who we truly are. And so thoughts are powerful. This is why our environment is detrimental to our overall success in life. You got to be careful who you're hanging around. And be careful who you tell your dreams to. That's something that I remember when I had started back to school, there was a pastor told me, he said, hey, I heard you back in school. I said, yeah. He said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'd like to go and get a master's. And he laughed at me. Okay, he said, try to get your undergrad first. And then after I got the second master, a few years later, he called me. He said, I'm wondering, can you help me? And I'm thinking, isn't God got a sense of humor? The same guy that laughed at me, and now he's coming for me for assistance. Only God can do that. I didn't say that to him, but I thought for one moment, God can take any person he wants to at any given time and transform their lives. That's totally up to, listen, whatsoever man thinketh, so is he. You got to be around people who think good. You know what I'm always around? I'm around people who are better than me. I want to be around people who are better than me because, for one thing, I'm going to learn from them. Let's go to the next one. Life is full of surprises, and whoever has your ear will captivate your heart. And so I realized that if somebody has my ear, I got to be careful how much I share. How do you share? How do you find people that are trustworthy? People that are trustworthy, you trust them a little at a time. And if they become that much more trustworthy, then you can begin to believe them. Mel Angelou said, if a person shows you who they are the first time, believe them. You know, and that's a lot of truth to that. But I also believe the Word of God. We need each other. And let me tell you something. I've said this on many occasions. I keep young people in my life for creativity. I keep people of my age for a sense of humility. And I keep elderly people for a sense of stability. Now, when I put all three of those together, they give me a sense of tranquility. And that came directly from the Lord as I was praying one morning. I need these young people to help me with stuff like this. Because they know a lot more about it than I ever will. And they can just go through it. And I said, look, I don't need to be schooled on this right now. Just fix the problem for me. And they can get it done in no time at all. You know, however, and I need people about my age who has been through the same things I have to tell me, listen, don't get full of yourself. My mother used to say this, I'm a country boy. Don't let your head get too big. It's big enough. And I believe that. So you stay humble. And then on the other hand, I need elderly people who don't live some life a lot longer than I have to appreciate them. Like Dr. Canton here and others that are around. You know, when I heard of his age, I'm saying, man, that's who I want to be like when I get there. Because I thought the dude was the same age as me. I'm saying, my God, he looks great. And so when I see that, it inspires me to do better and to live better. I'm at a point in time in my life that all I'm trying to do right now is to help other people get to another level. I'm looking out for my kids, I'm looking out for my grandkids, but I'm looking out for other people also myself. But if you're not in a good place to take care of you, you're not going to be in a good place to take care of anyone else. Now, look, I was married for almost 40 years. We dated 3 years prior to that, and my wife passed away nearly 4 years ago. She went on home to be with the Lord. But my wife, myself and my daughters, we became the caretaker for my wife the last 3 to 4 months of her life. And I want to tell you, it was a privilege to do that. It really was a privilege. Now, how did I do that? People ask me, how did I do that? First of all, I took care of me. I had to take care of me. So I had a set time. My daughters and we had a set time. I said, I need to go to the church and pray. And then I need to put my sermons together. And then I need to study the Word of God. And then I need to work out. And then I would come home in the afternoon. And I would take care of your mother the rest of the night. And that's what I did. And you know what? When young people, let me tell you something. When you say to death do us part in health and in sickness, you have no idea what that means until you lived it. Because a lot of people will run away from that. But when your mental state is aligned with your spiritual state, you can just about do everything. Because God is for you, who can be against you? You know, so let's go to the next one. Learn from others' mistakes. Because these things right here will help us. How does this tie in with our spiritual wealth? Because you have to watch people. Listen, this is the house I was born and raised in the state of North Carolina. This was my sister and her husband. Now, she couldn't have been no more. I think when she was dating him, she had just turned 18 and getting ready to graduate from high school. Well, about 2 months later, she got pregnant. My dad lined us up, and I said this too the last time I was here. He lined his 4 boys up. He said, you see what happened to your sister? He said, that boy there, he's gonna marry your sister. We call them shotgun marriages. You go get a shotgun and say, oh, you're gonna marry my daughter. So my dad told us, he said, look, see what happened to her? He said, just remember, you go out and mess up a young man's daughter, you're gonna marry her. I don't care if she's 350 pounds. She's short, skinny, tall, black, green, white, whatever color she is. She's yours for life. I want to tell you something. I never forgot that. I thought if I held a woman's hand, she was going to get pregnant. So we didn't even date until we got out of high school. We were scared to death. But it was a lesson that taught us to see. And today, my sister, I think 52, 53 years, they're still married. And they have 3 sons, they're grown, and about 5 or 6 grandkids. So let's go to another one. Now this is the house that it is to now, but this was about 10 years ago. We lived in North Carolina. It was the closest home to the road than any other house in the state of North Carolina. I'm surprised we as kids never got killed or ran over, because that was a busy road, and on the hillside to my left here is a railroad. Now, when I saw this, when I lived there, I used to say, I'm not living here the rest of my life. I used to watch a television show that used to be The Streets of San Francisco. I never imagined this, but I thought in my heart. I watched it every afternoon. I said, I'm gonna live there. I said, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to move to California, and I'm going to live there. I'm going to buy me a house in San Francisco. I'm going to get married, and I'm going to have 2 children and raise them in the city. And I told one person, they said, fat chance that's going to happen. But I kept my dream alive. Don't let nobody steal your dream. That's why sometimes the dream has to be between you and God and the Holy Ghost. Because if you talk too much, look at the guy Joseph. He talked too much. He had a dream, but he told his brothers, and they were out to kill him. But God had another plan for him. And so when you stop and think about this, I had told my mom, whatever I do, I said, I've seen my father drown. I found my father, he drowned 4 years after my brother drowned right in front of us. Betting a man a gun that he could swim across the pond. And a whirlpool took him up under and took his life. So I told my mom, I said, I'm not dying in North Carolina. I'm leaving. At 20 years old, I left my brother and I, we drove across the state. And we came to California. We lived with some relatives for 6 months. Bought a house, went back and got our mom and the rest of the family and brought them out here. And the story went on. Now, did I get that house in San Francisco when I got here? No, it was 10 years later. But my dream was fulfilled. From hard work, from spiritual mindedness, and hanging around the right people that helped me get there. And by the way, you don't get nowhere in life without other people helping you. Did you hear that? You don't you don't do this alone. You don't do life by yourself. Life happens when there's other people like-mindedness like you can get on board with you, and you got to be able to give back. That's part of it, right? Let's go to the next one. So some of the things that are derailing for us is stresses. And there's a lot of stresses, especially within marriages and whatnot. And that's my specialty that I generally do with couples and counseling and whatnot. We are overloaded with the pressures of the world. And that's a lot of things that come up. That's why we need the Lord, right? That's why we need the Lord. Our mind has to be clear. He said, in 1 Corinthians 2:9, the scripture says, I have not seen nor have ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things in which God has prepared for them that love him. We don't have a clue what God has prepared for us. But I'm going to tell you something. God will deal with your mess if you give it to him. But you know what? God won't bless mess if you stay there. He can't bless it. I had a young man that come to my church about 3 weeks ago. And I hadn't seen him in a while, but he came up to me. It was one of those few times I had an altar call. And he came up and he said, Pastor, I need the Lord. So I prayed over him, asked him to accept the Lord into his life. He said he did. I said, now son, you need to stay in the house of God. He said, that's what you told me the last time. I know, Pastor. And I noticed when we got out into the lobby, I saw a bag on the side of him, and his mother and his whole family was there. And then the memory came back. Because, you know, as a pastor, people come and go. I've been pastoring for years. People come and go. And I saw him. I remember the family. And I had told him, I don't know exactly what it was, but I told him, you need to stay with the Lord, son, because your life is on the balance. Well, his mother looked at me, and he looked at me, and he starts crying. He said, a month ago, I was shot 6 times, and that's why I'm carrying this bag. He said, they took 5 bullets out of me, but I still got one enlarged in me, and they can't take it out. And he said, I thought about what you said a long time ago, that I should have stayed in the house of God. Folks, listen, once God has released you from junk, don't go back. It would be better if you have never known and tasted the glory of God than to have known of him and then return back. It's like a dog who returns to the sow, to the vomit. It's like a pig returning to the miry clay. And let me tell you, I know both of those experiences because we raised pigs. And you know what the pigs would do? We would have a mud pond down at the side. A pig would sit there and scratch themselves like that for an hour and then go right back in the mud and wallow all over again. You don't go back when you're cleaned up. Why would they do that? Well, a lot of it was they didn't want the bugs or whatnot, the horse flies to get on them, so they would just kind of shake it off. But when God cleans you up, don't go back. Don't go back. Let's go to the next one, because some stresses are good and some are not so good. We'll go on with that. Take the next one. They can overwhelm you. Now, most of you never seen this, but this is real tobacco. Now, we raised this. It's green right now. Let's go to the next one. This is when it is cured. Now, most people don't know that tobacco has to set in a factory for 7 years before they make a cigarette out of it. And they put all types of chemicals in it. This is the reason why this is still the most addictive drug it is. Like I said, there's 4 major addictions. That's pornography, that's alcoholism, that's drugs, and then that's smoking, meaning nicotine. But the most addictive one of all of them is this right here. I'm gonna tell you, at 20 years old, I smoked. At 20 years old, God delivered me from that. And I never had another desire to do it again. Now, I did have some temptations, but I never yielded to it because the Spirit of God has said, I'm going to deliver you from this. But if you ever go back, you're on your own. See, this is folks, if you got a good mind, you can achieve the world. But if your mind is messed up, here's what drugs would do. Here's what drugs would do. Drugs will burn the neurons inside of your brain. That's the small little blood vessels. And you know what? If you took drugs, say methamphetamines, if you took drugs at 15 and you stopped at 30, guess what happens? Your brain is that of a 15-year-old. Now, and some people say, well, God would heal it. He can. But I'm going to tell you, for the most part, that side of your brain is burned up. And you're 15 years behind time because of your circumstances and the choices that you make. The scripture says this right here. It said, I wish above all that they may prosper and be in good health, even as their soul prosper. Can you imagine that? God wants us to prosper. He said, I wished above all that you may prosper and be in good health. 3 John chapter 2. I wished above all that you may prosper and be in good health. That's that soul prosper. What he's saying is that you have a part in this with God. One of it is to make sure that you walk with him. The other part is to take care of you. What do they do when you get you on an airplane? If the plane is going down, put the mask on you before you put it on your child. You say, well, that's awfully selfish. No, you got to take care of you before you get. Imagine you going down and you trying to put the child's thing on and you both pass out. What good is that going to do you? Is anybody here with me besides this film here? Let's go to the next one. That's the railroad track. That's how close it was to our home. If that train, I think about it today and it just scares the bejesus out of me. If that train had ever derailed, it would have just wiped our house out. We wouldn't have known what hit us. That's how close it was to us. That's country, folks. That's country. Let's go to the next one. Change can be our biggest challenge. I don't know where I'm going. Let's go to the next one. Most people don't know anything about budgeting, therefore they have no plan. An estimate of income and an expenditure for a set period of time. Now, I'm not professionally as far as these people are with their finances. I thank God you guys are here because I'm always in a process of learning. But I do know this one thing. Once I learned how to budget, I learned how to save. So I came up with this scenario right here. Save some, spend some, give some, and I always have some. Now, most of you don't know what that means. You gotta save before you spend. And most people, as soon as they get it, it's gone. You gotta save some. You gotta spend some to live, right? You gotta learn how to give some. To whom much is given, much is required. I've learned that. Listen, let me just tell you a short story. And I'm gonna close up here a few minutes because I always give more than what I have. But let me tell you a short story. In North Carolina and Virginia, back in the 60s, they used to have the dog races that come on. They were greyhound dogs. And every Saturday night, they would have these dogs racing. And what happens is that if you go to Kmart or Winn-Dixie, as they called it, these were grocery stores and supermarkets, they would give you tickets based on the amount of groceries that you actually purchased. Now, so we would get that because we were such a large family. It was 6 of us kids, and then my mom and dad, it was 8 of us. So my mom and dad would buy about 10 bags of groceries, right? And they'll spend at that time about $75. That was a lot of money then. Can you imagine 10 bags of groceries, $75? Yeah, I go to Sprouts, I spend 1 bag and it's $100. I said, what is that? And so here we were, and they gave my mom about 10 tickets. We go home and nobody's home but my brother and I. And we're watching the dog races because it came on Saturday night about the same time. And lo and behold, we look on now, the highest price was $2,000. Now you imagine, and I was 8 years old, so this was probably 1963, 64. And we won the ticket. We won the $2,000. And I'm telling my brothers, I said, we are rich. We are rich. $2,000. $2,000 to farm people in 1964 was like $200,000 to us today. $2,000. We came, my mom and dad came home and I said, oh my God, we are going on vacation. We're going to do everything in the world. This money, we're going to get out of poverty and everything. We were so excited. My dad said, boy, you got to be careful. We'll go down there. They'll post the numbers tomorrow morning. So they were posted on a Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning. My dad and I and the whole family, we drove down there. We looked at our ticket and lo and behold, we had won the $2,000. But we had to wait until that Monday. My mom and dad went down there And we were talking and everything. My dad was talking about, oh man, we're going on vacation. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. And my mom turned to my dad and said, after we got the check, we saw the check was, oh, Jesus is real. He is real. Oh my God. $2,000. We are rich. My mom said, the church was having a building project going on. My mom was really religious, right? And my mom said, my dad's name was Andrew. She said, Andrew, that money does not belong to us. That money belongs to God. I said, you are crazy, Mama. She slapped me upside the head again, you know, because I heard the conversation. I was here hustling. And she said, that money, every penny of that money is going to the church. My mom and dad literally argued about that money for 3 days, but my mom won. Like most women do, they win. She won. But what happened is that my mother sealed the faith of her children with that $2,000. And what I mean by that, we became extremely blessed. None of us, all of us always had jobs. We're still married. We're all married until I lost my wife. None of us ever got divorced. None of us had ever been in jail. And we are all talking together as brothers and sisters today. So if you look at it in the context of what God has done, I look back and I said, my mother sealed the faith because I have her heart. I have my mother's heart. I don't have my father's heart. Now one of my brothers have my father's heart. And believe it or not, he didn't do as well as the rest of us because the rest of us have our mother's heart. My mother was all about giving. Now, you got to know how to balance that too. You can't give everything. You got to know when to give and when not to give and how to give and how much to give. It's a spiritual thing, right? You got to have wisdom and knowledge and understanding because all that plays a major part. I guess my person has gone. So can you give me about 5 more minutes?
Of course.
Will you raise your hand about... Oh, okay. Yeah, can you turn that? Can you give me about, will you raise your hand so if you can give me 5 minutes? 5, 10, 15, 20, 20. Okay, I'm good, thank you. Okay. You can't really know where you're going until you know where you have been. That's a true statement, right? It's a really true statement. We don't know where we're going until we know where we have been. I know where I have been. I know where I came from. My mother told me this right here when I came out to California nearly 40 some odd years ago. She said, just remember this, son, don't forget where you came from. I said, oh, Mom, I can never do that. Don't let your head get big. Let's go to the next one. They didn't see all the work you put in, so when they criticize you, don't give in. People will never know all the work. They see your story. They see the glory, but they don't know your story. And so that's why you can't tell people everything about you. Got to trust them a little bit at a time. Let's go on. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. Look, there's a scripture that goes like this. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. A sound mind is a peace of mind. That's why he tells us to study to show ourselves approved to God, a workman that need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Now, I don't know about you, but this is one of my prayers in the Psalms 119:11. Your word have I hid in my heart, that I may not sin against thee. That's the reality that I want to live. Lord, I want your word to hide in my heart, that I may not sin against thee. In Psalms 37 verse 4, he said, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And then he says this in Proverbs 9:10. When he says, if you give unto me the first fruit of your increase, Now, a lot of people they don't know what that means. What is the first fruit of my increase? You know, it's amazing when we get our checks, right? We look at all the taxes that is being taken out of us. They say, well, I give the Lord a few dollars of this right here. He said, Pastor, what are you trying to do? Take up an offering? No, I don't want your offering. I just want you to have God's best. Because, see, a lot of us, what we'll do, we'll say, well, I'm going to tithe on the net. But I'm going to tell you something. IRS don't tithe on the net. They tithe on your gross. And federal taxes don't tithe on your net. They tithe on your gross. State taxes don't tithe on your net. They tithe on your gross. So why should we give God the very best of the first of our fruits? You see, this is the reason why I want you to understand something. When we talk about spiritual wealth, yeah, money is powerful. And how many of you know you can't buy nothing without it? It's just the way it is. You know, this building didn't get here by our looks. You know, and so it ain't gonna get here unless you got some do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Follow what I'm saying? Let's go to the next one and then I'm gonna close it up, I promise you. Don't let your present circumstances dictate your destiny. Winston Churchill said, success consists of going from failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm. I just want you to know something, folks. I won't let anybody steal my joy. The joy of the Lord is my strength. People say, how do you do this? How did you survive in this right here? I'll tell you how I survived. One day at a time. With prayer, with steadfasting, with trusting in the Lord with all my heart, leaning not to my own understanding, in all my ways acknowledging Him, and He would direct my path. Right? I mean, the scripture says, look, faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things not seen. And faith comes from hearing, and hearing from the word of God. And without faith, it's impossible to please Him. For he that come to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder to those who diligently seek Him. And He said this one thing in Isaiah 59, verse 1. My arm is not shortened that I cannot save you, neither is my ear heavy that I cannot hear you. See, this is what happens when we serve the resurrected Christ. Look, every morning when my feet hit the floor, I just say, Lord, I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you. We raised 2 daughters. We worked hard. We had a janitorial business for years. I was working full time. And it still wasn't enough money, but I was determined. At one time, I was paying 3 tuitions for college. My 2 daughters and myself. And you know what I told them? I said, look, here's the problem. You guys gonna have a double whammy problem. First of all, unfortunately, but fortunately for me, you are females. Secondly, you are women of color. So you can't just get an undergrad degree. You gotta at least get a master's. I will pay for your undergrad, but you gotta go on to get your master's. And that's what they did. They kept their word, I kept mine. And in the round circle of things, here's what we told them. We look at each other today and we began to talk. And they said, Daddy, had we not seen you in the library as an elderly man studying to get your work done and bringing us along with you on the journey, we never would have went to college. You see, folks, people watch you. I was downtown years ago on Market Street. And somebody from a high-rise building, Pastor Withers! I said, oh, God, it's that bald head of mine. That's what it is. Pastor was, I had no idea it was. I just waved at him and kept going. You don't know who's watching you. You don't know the impact of other people that you have placed upon their life. Thank you for this time and this opportunity that you have given me today to just be touched by your presence. God bless you. Amen.
speakers. That was excellent. Raised the spirit. Kind of got me moved. I want to introduce myself. I'm Thor Kieslowski. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure, the former redevelopment agency. I'm not here to talk about myself, but Pastor Withers moved me to talk about two young men in this audience. Dr. Honeycutt already identified them, but I want to say hello to Blair McClendon and Evan. These gentlemen work for the Office of for the Office of Economic and Workforce Development. They're funding this workshop, and they fund a lot of different programs in Bayview Hunters Point. And I've been working Bayview Hunters Point since 2005. And there are a lot of folks who have done a lot of good community work, community organizing. They don't often go recognized, but they do the work. In the quiet of the night, in the quiet of the day, out of the spotlight, they do good work in City Hall. So I just want to invite either both of them or one of them to come up and just say hi to the audience. But I just want to say we appreciate you guys. We need young people like you doing good work in the neighborhood, helping uplift organizations that are doing good community programs, and to know that we have your back here in the community, we have your back in City Hall, because you guys bring home the good work here in Bayview Hunters Point. So one of you guys come up and speak for the agency there. Evan? And please don't let him get away without talking about his entrepreneurial background.
On the spot. Did not prepare, have no prepared words, but I am excited to be here to support Dr. Honeycutt Foundation. We are the Community Economic Development Team at OEWD, supporting Dreamkeeper Initiative. How many people know about the Dreamkeeper Initiative, Bob Raisin? Great. Well, that is what we do. We are supporting the African American community. Dreamkeepers is an organization that has funded the African American capacity building efforts for small businesses, for nonprofits, for storefronts, for our vendors, and also our community leaders that are on the grounds doing the work in Bayview Hunters Point, Fillmore, OMI, Sunnydale, and other underserved areas in San Francisco. My team, we fund a total of about $5 to $7 million a year in programming. And this particular year, we are focusing on incubators and training for small businesses, for chefs, for small business retailers, and also for event producers. As we continue to do this work, we're trying to be very thoughtful about how to improve as a city service organization, which I don't think is very rare, but I think it's rare that I elevate that and highlight that to community. A lot of times community thinks that everything is status quo and we're moving forward in the same direction as we always have, but that is not the case. As we are looking at our programs, we are internally thinking about how to improve those programs. We're internally thinking about how to measure these programs effectively to be able to continue to put dollars in the pockets of our entrepreneurs and keep the money into the community longer. We are constantly thinking about how to raise the level of knowledge, the level of skill for our entrepreneurs and our community members so we can stand out amongst other communities when it comes to entrepreneurship and small business. And so that is our mission this year. We are going to need community to be able to do that. So feedback is extremely important to do that. And so Thor, I thank you for giving us the floor to talk about that today. So, and Pastor, thank you for your words, very inspiring. And just looking forward to more events like this in the future. Thank you.
People want to hear, yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know what to say that Evan hasn't said, but my name is Larry McClendon. I work with the city and county at OEWD. We serve the community. Been doing this for almost 7 years now. Set out as the Bayview project manager, and Bayview pretty much gave me the lessons I needed to understand how to serve community. And so Dr. Honeycutt was one of the few community members who gave me a shot And if you guys know what that means, if you serve this community, very skeptical of government, given the history. And there was a few community leaders who allowed me to learn from them, gave me some grace. And, you know, also just saying, like, we're going to see what you do. I mean, we're going to, you know, you just ain't going to come in here and we're going to give you, but we're going to lift you up and give you the opportunity to serve. And that gave me the opportunity to prove myself to leaders like Dr. Honeycutt, Dr. Scott, Eloise Patton, a lot of folks who serve community. And so Thor is one of the people who, you know, he used to ride his bike. I tell this all the time. Thor used to ride the bike around the neighborhood, meet me for meetings. But Thor is the one who elevate the history of the neighborhood. And to the closing quote, one of the quotes is that you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And Thor has been the historian who breaks it down for me all the time. Larry, you got to remember, you know, that the city did this and that, and you got to understand where community feels this way. And so that knowledge and to what brings us here today, what Dr. Honeycutt is doing is passing that knowledge along, and why this is one of the most valuable things that we're funding within our portfolio. And so thank you, Dr. Honeycutt, for pushing me to come up here. But I wanted to say that we have 100% focus on community, serving community and meeting them where they're at. And as long as we get to be in the shadows of Dr. Honeycutt, we will be good. So thank you so much.
All right, there's another young man in the back. Thank you, sis. Alex Ingram, I need you to come to the front, because when I do all those Zoom calls, I see you and Evan and Larry and all these other wonderful people.
So I'm Alexander Ingram with the Office of Economic Workforce Development. It's a pleasure to be on the team with Larry and Evan and to help support events like this and do work in community. My role is grant specialist, so I'm a little bit more behind the scenes, working on helping organizations submit their deliverables more efficiently so that they can, have funding to do the work that they're doing. And yeah, just blessed to be here with you today, hearing some wonderful words, a lot of takeaways that I got out of your message. So really appreciate that, and yeah, just very thankful again to be here.
All right, so your food is coming, folks. Know that we're going to take care of you, okay? But we're just going to move this program right along. So I am going to do an introduction to the moderator for the next section of the program. And that moderator is my wonderful daughter, Tia Honeycutt. Who is the broker and founder of Proxima Realty Group, a boutique brokerage that nurtures buyers and sellers in her old hometown of San Francisco, her new hometown of Oakland, 30 years, and much of the East Bay, South Bay, and San Joaquin County. Her specialties are residential sales, rehab and renovation, and multi-family investment property sales. She is one of Reology's top 1,000 in the nation in sales volume. And has had the honor of serving as the past president and MLS chair of her local association, as well as the current MLS chair and past executive committee member and regional chair at the state level. She studied, now you know if you're going to be in my household, you know you have to get an education, one way or the other, okay? But she listened to me, okay? She studied physics at UC Berkeley before she left to pursue a career in entertainment. And she was on a NASA Bridges or 2 or 3 program. I thought that was kind of cute.
I put that in there.
She's a former member of the Screen Actors Guild and spent 10 years in the film and television industries. She enjoys the company of her husband, 4 children, yes, and their Aussies, shepherds, Bella and Blue, as well as practicing yoga, supporting the Realtors Relief Fund, and advocating on behalf of CAR, see, I got that right, Tia, and NAR. And she's involved in a lot of activities, okay, and is more out of town than she is in town right about now because of her responsibilities. So I want to introduce you to my daughter, and I want you to know this. I was sitting in a conference one day, and a young lady ran up to me, and she said, "Are you Tia Honeycutt's mother?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "Tia sold me my house." And I said, "Well, lady, that's wonderful. Thank you. That's good to know." She said, "You don't know. If it hadn't been for her, I wouldn't be in that house." Tia's specialty is working with people.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to meet my team. As my mom stated earlier, we are Proxima Realty Group, a boutique real estate firm located in the East Bay, where we cover the entire Bay Area. My agents are here with me today, and I want to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves to you. So they're going to give their name and a funny fact about themselves or why they got into real estate.
Hi, I'm Ebony Smith, and a fun fact about myself, I'm not sure it's a really fun fact, but I'm one of 13, and don't ask which one has the most, my mom or my dad, but I'm one of 13. And I got into real estate because I want to help people get into housing, and I've been working in the housing field for over 15 years, so I'm really passionate about how people become housed, because we all deserve to be housed.
Hi, my name is Gloria Lara. I speak Spanish. I am fluent and bilingual. And one of the reasons why I got into real estate was to help those bilingual people out there that sometimes are intimidated in regards to, trying to get a loan, not really trusting people out there. And so my passion is helping my culture and understanding and guiding them to the American dream, which is owning a home. Okay, fun fact about me, I love to travel and surf, I guess.
Hello, my name is Ashley Johnson. I am a Southern California transplant who has lived in San Francisco for just over 12 years now. Fun fact about me is I am a fully certified Pilates instructor and teach Pilates on the side. I love it. And through becoming a Pilates instructor, it started making me think about wellness, like general wellness, and how financial wellness is a part of that. My parents are of color, and through no fault of their own, were never homeowners, and I really feel and saw the way that limited our options and our growth potential as individuals and as a collective, and that extends out to our larger community. So I got my real estate license to help underserved folks in underserved communities achieve the goal of home ownership, because when our communities are well, our people are well, our world is well.
Okay, so my name is Idowu Kwejo, and I go by Amy as my work name, Amy Idowu, and I've known Tia for about 15 years. 15 years, maybe a little longer, I'm not sure, but I got into real estate because my father was an appraiser, and throughout the Bay Area, he would tag us along and show us these amazing homes, and I got my license, and he was excited, and then Tia encouraged me to, come with her, so I started off at Colwell with her, and then now I'm here at Proxima, so I'm excited to be a part of the team. A fun fact would be, I have a 23-year-old son.
All right, so I'm just going to rearrange this. Again, hello, and welcome to folks on Instagram and here in person. Okay, so A couple of quick questions that I have for you. Please raise your hand if you own property. If you own your home. All right, so we've got a pretty good group here. So I just want to know how to tailor the presentation. For those of you that don't own your own home, are you a renter? So renters, raise your hand. Okay, so we've got a few renters, so we'll keep our eye on you. So ladies in the back, you see where the renters are, go get them. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and advance. We know that's me, so we'll go in. So today we're gonna talk about building wealth through property ownership. And since the majority of you do own your own home or a property, you are living that, right? But today we're going to talk about investing as well, and why that next step is purchasing multi-unit, condo, land, whatever is that next step for you. So that is what we're here to talk about today. We're going to cover ownership tips, tricks, and strategies, another thing that's important about today is hopefully you have some information that you can take back to your communities. And I know one of my agents has lived this. A lot of people feel like when they leave their parents' home, they need to start renting, right? And what we're really trying to get people to think about the concept of is if your home situation is workable, right? If it's safe and a place where you feel secure, you may want to extend your living at home opportunity so that your next step is into a property that you own, as opposed to wasting all of that money on rent, right? And I know we say waste, but that's how I think of it, right? Because if you think about it, even if you've got inexpensive rent, which for the Bay Area would be like $1,000, right? That's ludicrous. No one's renting anywhere for $1,000, but let's say you could, right? Well, that's $12,000 a year. It's $24,000 over 2 years. Now you're starting to push into down payment territory, right? So what happens is you get on a little renter treadmill that it's very hard to get off of, right? Because all the money is going out the door instead of paying towards your future and allowing you to build equity in your family and create generational wealth. You're paying to someone else's, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well, and how to think about things a little bit differently, right? Pressing buttons. Why not keep renting? Well, we talked about that a little bit ourselves. So let's talk about the concept of wealth building. And what is wealth, right? How is wealth defined? Well, wealth can be defined as the accumulation of valuable economic resources, right? But I like to think of it as a hedge against economic downturns, right? If you have wealth as opposed to being rich, which sometimes is like having a lot of cash, right? But we see a lot of folks, whether they be athletes or rappers or whoever, who have a lot of cash, but you can burn through cash, right? So how can we turn that cash into an investment or an asset that can be transferred to other family members and handed down throughout your family's history, right? So when we talk about wealth, right, and accumulating wealth, what is wealth building? Well, wealth building connotes a diversified plan to increase the number and value of these assets, right? So for those of you who already have your home, what's the next step, right? Where do we hide some of those dollars, right? Hide some of those dollars so that it's not sitting in an account somewhere getting spent, where we can put it where it's making money for you, right? And that's the concept behind an investment property. And again, whether it's a condo that you rent out, or whether it's a multiplex, a fourplex. The great thing about duplexes, threeplexes, and fourplexes is that they can be purchased like a single family home, right? And Anthony, our lender here, will tell you about all the exciting strategies for that more on our panel. But what that means is unless you buy 5 units or more, it's considered a residential property. So you can use down payment assistance. You can use some of these programs, especially if you're going to use it as the home that you're going to live in, right? If you're going to buy, you could buy 4 units, you could live in one, and have the other 3 people paying towards your mortgage. while you're accumulating equity, and let me back up, equity is the amount that that the property is worth minus what you paid for it, right, or what your mortgage is. So let's say, for example, you paid $600 on a property, and after 3-4 years, now it's worth $800, right? So your equity is the $200,000, right? And so that's money that you could borrow against, that's money that you could sell and then use to buy something else. So personally, what we did was, one of our first properties was a fourplex, and we lived in one unit. You know, we all squeezed up in there, all 4 of us, right? Until we had enough equity within the property to sell and then buy the home that we're in now. And so that's just a concept that I want to get across to you today, is a lot of folks think that their first step is the glamorous step, right? They think the first step is the HGTV step. And especially in my home market, which is Oakland, we have a lot of properties that were built in the 20s and the 30s, right? So most of those homes are 2-bedroom, 1-bath, because way back when, a family of 6 or 10 or whatever, they'd all squeeze up in there and think it was just fine, right? So that's what we have as our housing inventory, and they're solid built, they're redwood, you know, they've been around for 100 years. You just, you know, take care of the foundation and the home will survive another 100 years, right? But what happens is folks think that their first home has to be the 4-bedroom, 2-bath, new construction. And so what people do is they go out to Stockton, right? And what happens then is the homes don't have as much value in Stockton. And they're like, well, I don't care. I can make the 2-hour journey every day back and forth to San Francisco. But you can't. Like, it's not humanly possible, right? And so what happens, people are just like, oh, forget it, you know? And they let it go to foreclosure, or they try to sell it, and the value's not there. So that's what we try to teach folks, again, is a starter home is a starter home for a reason, right? And you buy that home, and you sit in there and you get your equity, and then you can either hold on to that home and rent it out and buy another one, or you can sell that one and take that money and move up and get the 3-bedroom, 2-bath that you always wanted. So that's why we're really trying to remind folks that if you do have a safe situation where you can stay at home, work that situation as long as you can so you can get a nice down payment for yourself, and let your first step be property ownership, not necessarily renting. Now, I'm saying that knowing that sometimes you have situations in your home where that's not possible, where you need to get out of there, you know, and I'm cognizant of that. Okay, I'm getting way far ahead of myself in the presentation, but let me keep going, and then I'll talk about some of the strategies. This is in here just because I thought it was shocking. It doesn't have a ton to do with my presentation, but as you can see, these numbers here aren't great, right? So in the first column, you have the percentage of first-time home buyers, and these are national numbers. This is from the National Association of Realtors. And the second column is of home sellers, right? So you can see where a lot of the generational wealth, especially in the home seller category, is, right? And then as far as folks that are building generational wealth, which would be in your first-time home buyer category, you're seeing those low percentages there, right? And honestly, what I find, and my agents and we've had this conversation before, is there just isn't the financial literacy in the communities of color. So that's what a big part of our job is to make sure that we are having these conversations with folks. And helping them to understand that there's a strategy that is underway for folks that are creating and maintaining generational wealth. And sometimes it's about doing with a little less now so that you can invest in your future moving forward. So I just wanted to share that with you. All right, so here's really the crux of it. Look at the difference between wealth, right, net worth, and net worth is your assets minus your debts. So that means the stuff that you own, your car, your house, jewelry, paintings, right, minus the loans that you have out, right? Look at the difference between renters and homeowners. And that amount is just getting larger and was actually exacerbated by COVID. Because you had a situation where property values went through the roof in COVID, right? Because you had cheap money, so people could borrow, right? The interest rates were low, so people could borrow very easily. And some of my best years were during COVID, right? Because everyone was stuck at home and they were like, wait a minute, I can't, this is not a workable situation. I need to move up to my next situation, right? And many of my clients are all by referral. Many of them, I came in the business in 2008, so I've been licensed as a broker since then. And they all bought a bunch of cheap houses then, you know, and they were in kind of rough shape in some cases, and they put money into them, and, you know, they lived away there with their kids, and then COVID came around, and they're like, I'm sick of this house, right? And many of these folks bought houses for $350, $400 maybe at the most. They sold those houses for 1.3, 1.4, right? These are just normal people, right? Not people that have, you know, had a lot of resources to begin with. So what I'm saying is it's an attainable goal, right? But you've got to be flexible about the type of property, right? And if it's a condo, it's a condo, right? It's still a situation where you're paying yourself to live somewhere as opposed to paying someone else, okay? This I put in there as well just to show you what happened with COVID. I don't know what's going on with Florida, but apparently a lot of people are moving to Florida, right? So you're talking about almost 70% appreciation. I mean, if you can imagine, it's like if you had a house in 2020, it's now worth twice that much in Florida. That's crazy, you know? So it just goes to show you that with that kind of monetary policy, where the money went, right? And a lot of it went into real estate. And luckily now, thankfully, we're seeing some of that, shall we say, redistribution in the form of down payment assistance programs. And I know, Anthony, I can't remember, is it CalVet or there's a new program that was out before that went so quickly, everyone got super mad about it, but then it's back out again now, and it's a first-time home buyer program. Thank you, Dream for All. And what happened with that was the funds were used up so quickly the last time. Now they put a few more restrictions on it, so you have to be both a first-time home buyer and you have to be first generation, which means that your parents can't. I don't know if does it go back to grandparents or is it just parents?
Yeah, just parents.
Just parents. So, you know, and in many other communities, we might have grandparents that were able to buy when houses were $50,000, you know, but maybe we have a parent that didn't. So that's one of the examples of, and that one gives up to $150,000 towards your down payment. And that loan just sits there. You don't have to pay back for it until you sell, you know, or you, you know, if you decide that you want to sell down the road. So that's amazing. That's amazing because they're realizing the prices are just so high now that the average folks can't get in there. Teachers and, you know, fire people and, you know, the vast majority of citizens. So, what are the benefits, right? Financial stability, right? You are making your money work for you, right? Independence and control. You are not dependent on a landlord telling you anything about anything, right? And so I always remind my clients about that, and I also remind them just to make sure you're setting aside a little money as a nest egg, because we all know when we had those experiences of calling the landlord and they wouldn't show up, and they wouldn't show up, and they wouldn't show up, and then they finally show up and they fix it, right? Well, when you own, they're never showing up, right? Because there's no landlord. You are the landlord, right? So just making sure you have a little bit of a nest egg for you, because something's going to go, maybe in the first 6 months, depending on, you know, what kind of condition the home was in when you bought it. It's probably going to be plumbing. It's probably going to be the water heater or the toilet, because those are the things that get the most use in the house, right? So if you could set aside $1,000, you know, so that when those things go, you're not stuck. Right, and I will say, and I'm not looking at my notes at all, but I will say that I've had 250 transactions. That means representing either the buyer or the seller. And I've only had 2 clients go into foreclosure. Both were situations where they were a couple and they started fighting, and one had to move out and the other one stayed in the property and wouldn't pay the mortgage.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is, if we can work, right? If we can work to have working relationships, right? That will prevent that type of situation, okay? And I know sometimes there's just things you can't do. And I mean, I'm on the phone with them and I was like, you know what? Starting today, let's let the house go, give yourself 7 years, and we'll be back at it, right? Because sometimes you do have to start fresh, but that's 2 people in 250. Right? Because I do a really good job, I will say, of making sure that I talk to my clients and they understand what they're taking on as far as financial responsibility is concerned. I would also say when you get pre-approved, either for your investment property or for your own personal property, realize that that pre-approval number is like an absolute max. An absolute max. Because it's usually not affordable. Right? It's usually way more than what you are going to be comfortable paying. So always ask, yeah, but what's my monthly payment? Right? What is my monthly payment going to be? Because a lot of times people get the number and they always, it's without fail, they come to me and they're like, Tia, I got pre-approved, you know? And this is them waving the piece of paper. And I'm like, yeah, but what's the monthly payment? Oh, I didn't ask. Right? Because they're just trying to get you off the phone, you know, and get the next person in and get them pre-approved. So always ask that question as well. Tax benefits. Those benefits do tend to kind of shift around, so I would talk with your tax professional, but generally there are always tax benefits both to owning your own home as well as investment property. And I know there's also a thing that's called like passive income that's taxed a little differently. So the income that you get off of an investment property isn't taxed like your payroll, like income tax. It's taxed at a much lower rate because they're trying to encourage people to invest in property. Because as landlords, we're doing the work that the government should be doing, right? So they try to incentivize that with tax policy. So put yourself in a position where you can take advantage of that, right? And then of course there's the forced savings aspect, right? Which is like every month you gotta pay your mortgage, right? And so, you know, as a homeowner for many years, I know a lot of homeowners were always like, well, I gotta pay the mortgage. You know, even if I, you know, gotta skip on the light bill or something, I've gotta pay the mortgage, right? And then 5-10 years out, when your equity is built up and you decide that you wanna move to be closer to the grandkids in Vegas or Atlanta. I had another client who moved to Alabama to an old folks home, and she made $1 million because they've been in the home for 40 years, you know, and they just enjoyed their home and paid the mortgage. The mortgage doesn't go up, right? The mortgage stays the same unless you refinance and take money out. So now you know when you're like, when I bought it, whoa, that $2,000 was tough to manage, you know? But then 20 years from now, you're like, you know, I can manage that just fine because my income has gone up, or I have a roommate who moved in, or, you know, I got kids now that are working and are giving me money towards the mortgage. So it's just really giving you opportunities, right? To have more money, right? So more benefits, generational wealth, that's what we're here today to talk about, being able to have assets to pass down to your family, the emotional security of not having, the sword of Damocles of rent increases hanging over your head, right? Knowing what you're going to be paying from here until the end of time. Community building, right? Being able to lay down roots in your community and know that you're going to be there because you're not going to have to move because your rent went up, you know, or they decided to sell your property that you live in. Retirement planning, you know, that is our retirement plan, is property, right? Because I have a business and there's no 401k offered at this time. So, you know, investing in property is a great way to ensure that the assets that you have, the things that you own, continue to increase value as you increase in age, right? And that's the beauty of real estate as well, is that many other assets that you have will decrease in value over time. The main asset that most people have is their car. And I used to sell cars as well. We called it the 10 grand drop, which is as soon as they drove out of the dealership and they went over the curb, they lost 10 grand. right? And it just keeps on going down, right? Property is not like that, you know? If you can maintain the property, and sometimes you can get grants to do that, right, depending on your zip code, the value will go up, right? Now, I had clients that had property throughout some of these downturns, and you can bet when the downturn occurred and everyone was saying, well, now my property's worth less, they all called me and they were like, my property's worth, And I'm like, yeah, but are you selling right now? No. Are you planning on selling anytime soon? No. Then it doesn't matter, turn the news off, right? When we're gonna be selling, right, because I'll advise you, when we're gonna be selling, if that's what you wanna do, I'm gonna tell you to sell at the top of the market. Right? So we don't care about it going up and down like that. And that's the thing with wealth, right? Is being able to ride those ups and downs, right? If you have a property, maybe you got an extra bedroom, maybe you have an ADU in the back, you lose your job, you rent all that up. Maybe you rent the whole thing up and go live with your parents for a while, right? But because you have those assets, you have a safety net, right? For these ups and downs. Right? And I know a lot of folks here in this area have a lot of tech money, and that I think is it's a volatile market, right? It hasn't been up until now. You know, everyone's making 300 grand and they're splashing and they're this and their trips and everything else. And, you know, what I always say is please just buy a property. You know, while you're doing all that stuff, of course, you're working hard. Enjoy your vacations. Enjoy your, the big controversy over the avocado toast. I love avocado toast. Have it every morning and night if you want, you know. But just make sure that you're buying something where you can lock some of that money up so that when Google lays you off, Google's not going to lay me off. I'm like, okay. But should something happen in that sector, just make sure you have a tangible asset that you can flip if you need to. All right, so let's see, where am I? And then of course, the economic impact of being able to invest in your community, because if you're a stable member in your community, as those of you homeowners know, the more you can start thinking about your community and why is that street not paved, and you can get on the phone and tell the city to come and deal with that. Why is the light out? Or why is that storefront empty? And maybe I'll put my niece in there with her hair business, or, you know, I mean, there's a lot of things you can start to kind of invest in your community when you're part of it. You have an asset that ties you to it, and you can start to lift some other folks as well, which is a lot of why we're here today. So, all right, so how? What strategies can we use to get into properties? And some of these are available for investment properties as well, so just bear that in mind. All right, let me make sure I'm okay. All right, so some people do pay cash for properties, and when I explain that to my clients and I say there's a cash offer, they mean, oh, you mean like I'm doing, like I'm putting a down payment and then they'll get, no, they're paying cash for the whole price of the property. I know, it's something, right? But a lot of those folks are selling somewhere else and they are taking that cash to buy. And a lot of Californians are doing that, right? A lot of Californians are selling, you know, because we have incredible appreciation here. San Francisco, San Jose are like the homes of incredible appreciation, right? And so they're taking that equity and they're going to Arizona or Nevada, or for a lot of folks of color are going to Alabama and Texas. God love them. God love them, you know. Yeah, and we'll just leave it at that. But they're very happy when they buy the new property, and then, you know, after they're there for a while, I don't know. But so anywho, yeah. So there are some people who pay out cash. Right? I don't see that as much as I used to when I first came into the business, because as I said, I came in right after Lehman Brothers, which was that whole nonsense that happened when Hank Paulson, who was the whatever he was in the government treasury, I think, didn't want to bail out Lehman Brothers because they had private jets and he didn't, and they always put it in his face that they had private jets and he didn't. So then when it went down, I'm talking the gossip aspect, but this is why our economy went in the in the, you know, where it went, was because there was like, yeah, well, you were laughing at me. And then that's when he had to go down on his knees. Did you guys remember this? He had to go on his knees with Nancy Pelosi and ask her to sign the bailout, because none of these things were supposed to be happening. I was in real estate school right before all this happened, and they're like, oh, there's no way the federal government is going to bail out the secondary market, which is where loans are flipped to so that lenders can turn around and sell again. Oh no, there's no way that's going to happen. Then 2008 happened, and then they did bail them out, because we did have an economic collapse, and it would still be collapse had they not run in, right? So then what happened with COVID, right, was a situation that could have been similar, was a lot of people lost money in 2008, right? And a lot of those people were like, we're not losing money again, right? So then when COVID happened, they're like, oh no, we need to flush money into the system. And the way to do that is to take the interest rates to almost zero. One thing I always complain about, it's a good thing my husband's not here because he's like, not again. But it's when they took interest rates to zero, none of us heard about getting loans for 0%, right? We were all delighted with 3% or 2.75, right? Because the banks were still making money. Right? The banks were like, well, we're going to still keep making money. So now that they're at, and Anthony will tell us, 7,000 or wherever they are now, right? 7%. The bank's still making money on the spread, right? On the difference between what they're borrowing for and what they're willing to offer us. So anyway, that's just me complaining back in with that about that again. But so I just want you to know that there are a lot of different down payment strategies that I have seen come about even just since COVID, right? Before COVID, down payment assistance might have been here or there and you have to go to a particular, now there's lots of them, right? And it's because a lot of these lenders saw a big decrease in their business from when we had quote unquote 0% interest rates to where we are now. So I'm very happy to see that, and just know when folks are saying to you, well, I don't have 20%, please, it's not 20%. It's not 20%. You don't need 20% to purchase property, right? At a minimum, 3.5, right, Anthony, for FHA, 5%. If you want to do something maybe that's a little bit more makes a little bit more sense financially, but it's not 20%. So when you're looking at homes that are $1 million, I have clients that are either using some sort of down payment program or they are getting money from family. There's no in between, right? Because saving $200,000, it's not when you're paying $4,000 a month rent, right? You know what I mean? So please let people know that it's not about the 20%, and it hasn't been for a while. This was the other strategy that I was talking about, moving back in with your parents, if that's a safe situation that you can do. Partnering with friends. This is a huge situation. I see a lot of people doing it now. It's almost better than partnering with family, right? Because with friends, you have a little more respect for each other, and you have chosen, right? You've chosen your friends. Also, I've seen a lot of this works really well because friends know they need assistance. And by assistance, I mean either an attorney or a realtor who can draft out a plan that says, this is the amount of effort I'm putting in, this is the amount of money that I'm gonna put in, so this is how much I want, right? And the other friend will be like, okay, well, this is how much I'm putting for my down payment, this is how much maintenance I'll be willing to do, and you craft a plan, and you can plan all of this before you even walk in the door, or even start looking for property together. So that's been a very, good strategy that I've seen as well. And again, with the be flexible about the property type, meaning condo, detached single family, multifamily, whatever different type. There are a lot of different residential, commercial. There's a lot of mixed use property that's available where you might have residential upstairs and commercial downstairs, like a storefront or something like that. There's great opportunities there. Right? It's a different category as far as the amount of money that you need to put down, but if you do have a business, right? A lot of folks have like warehousing businesses and stuff now. A lot of those Amazon businesses that a lot of young people have started, and they need warehouse space. Why not buy a warehouse downstairs that's got a couple apartments upstairs and do a partnership with other folks that want to use that same space? So we got to get creative about how we're approaching this, because just taking the one single family house when all the single family homes are 1.5, it's getting a little complicated, right, or difficult. And then also be flexible about the way that you approach the financing. Oh, and where. Don't be locked down to it's got to be in a particular neighborhood in San Francisco, or it's got to be San Francisco, or it's got to be Oakland. The Bay Area has a lot of little pockets, I call them, like El Sobrante, San Lorenzo, Pinole. Some parts of Pinole has kind of gone through the roof there as well. But there's some places where you can get a nice little property for not too bad of a price. So make sure that you are casting a wide net when you're searching. Okay, and that goes for investment property as well. The only caveat that I'll give you with investment property is don't pick something too far away, because you're going to have to take 3 or 4 trips to the property after you purchase it, while you're looking at it. You don't want it to be in Ohio unless you got family there. If you got family there you can trust, again, or friends, make sure you have a written agreement for how many times that person is going to go to the property and make sure things are okay. And secondarily, make sure you work with the property manager. And people are like, well, I want all the money for myself. And it's like, I have been both a property manager, right, because that's my job now, right? But I've also been a landlord, and I will not buy investment property without a property manager in place now. That's not me, right? Because it's too hard, and there will be those 11 o'clock phone calls, and there will be the one that keeps washing their hair without the little thing that you gave them for the drain for the 10th time, and so you've got to get the folks out to snake the line, and meanwhile the people upstairs are still flushing the toilet, even though you told them don't flush the toilet, the line's backed up, and they keep flushing, and then we know what happens, right? It's, again, the plumbing, right? That's where that's where the rubber meets the road. So, yeah. All right, so we're almost there. Resources for you moving forward. These are kind of types of folks that will have information for you that are not your uncle or your granddad that bought in the 80s and is back with the avocado toast, which is, well, if you guys didn't take vacations and didn't eat all that avocado toast, you'd be able to save for a property. And it's like, my friend, I love you and respect you, but when you bought your house, it was 20 grand, right? These houses now are over $1 million, or they're $2 million, right? So it's not about saving, it's about getting strategies and working with the appropriate professionals, right? So realtors are a great resource. Lenders, I always say start with the lender. Start with the lender, because what they're gonna do is nobody wants to talk to the lender. I don't know if people have had bad experiences with lenders, but what I'll tell you is most of them want your business, and they want to help you get to a point where they can have your business, right? So yes, they're gonna look at what your situation is, but everyone thinks I'm gonna pay all this stuff off, and then I'm gonna reach out to the lender. No, reach out to the lender. And Anthony's kind of, I don't know if that's a affirmative face or if you're like, please don't go. But, for me as a realtor, it's very helpful if someone is at least working with a lender, and then you can get a timeline for how long these things will take. And a lot of times they don't want you to pay off everything. They might want you to pay off a good percentage of it, but you want to maybe not have it go to zero either. And Anthony can get into why that's the case. But that's what I've seen, is that a lot of times it's not about having this big pile of cash that you use to pay off every single bill, but it's just getting it to a percentage that works for your debt to income ratio. And I'm kind of straying into area that's outside of my expertise, so don't get me, Anthony, but that's been my experience. So title companies. So a lot of times our older relatives get into trouble and they want to try to solve things themselves, and it's always better to reach out to a title company. That's like Old Republic Title is one, Chicago Title is one. They're a wealth of information, because a lot of times they'll just tell you, like, I'm living in this property and we're not sure how much money we owe. Can you take a look for me and see, send me a prelim. It's called preliminary report. And I'll do that for my clients or my prospective clients, because sometimes someone has put their name on your property without your knowledge, right? Sometimes the person you bought it from does some little trick and makes it so their name is still on the property, right? So it's a good idea to check and make sure. Now, if you're purchasing property, you don't have to worry about this, because title company, escrow company, realtors, everyone is involved in all that stuff. You start with a clean slate, right? But if you've had property for a while in your family, it's a good idea to double check and make sure there's nothing going on there that you don't know about, and then that'll give you information moving forward as far as what can be done. Because sometimes people get so far behind in their mortgage they don't realize that there are opportunities to help them out of that situation as well. And then of course financial websites. And I would pick the big names. I wouldn't pick like Bubba Joe's want to buy a house website. You know what I mean? I would do like Money, you know, or Newsweek, or, you know, things that you've heard of, right? And look at their financial sections for different ideas that they're talking about. Because there's a big one right now that's called like a REIT. It's a real estate investment trust. And if you ever look at those big giant office buildings or big giant apartment buildings, and you're like, does one person own that? Or, you know, how do those work? Usually it's a group of people who put their money into it. And then they're getting a return on it. So that's another way as well to invest in real estate and not necessarily take it all on yourself. So that's an idea. And that's it for me today. This is, follow us on Instagram and you will get more from me about buying, selling, investment properties, funny things that are going on, my beautiful team and all the things that they're involved in. And I just wanted to thank you today for listening to me, and hopefully you got some tidbits. We are all here to help you if you have any additional questions. And again, we do handle residential, commercial, and property management. So if you are interested in any type of property, please do give us a shout. And thank you very much for your time today.
Was saying, as Dr. Honeycutt was saying, the work around racial equity to be made real and manifest in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our cities, is something that I have been doing in addition to the big body of work that we're responsible for in the office, which is assessing and recording all real property in the city and county of San Francisco. That's over $340 billion worth of value. It's the largest single stablest source of funding for the city and county. Around $4 billion comes from that work, and all homeowners and all commercial property owners is a majority of where that value comes from. Just some notes. You've been reading about the economy and the space that we're in right now. A lot of that impact is what our office is facing. Defending value at appeals, but making sure that the value that people are receiving, which is what their taxes are based on, is fair and is accurate according to the state law, which governs our work. And it's what we refer to whenever we're making our decisions around valuation. That being said, if anyone you know in community or you yourself have questions about that notice you received from me, as I like to say, the bill is from the other Mexican, Jose Cisneros, and he knows I say that. But if you have any questions about that, reach out. There is no wrong door. And it's always better to ask a question than not when you come to our office. I'm joined today by Tina Rose Navarro, who leads community engagement work for me. If there are things that you're seeing from our office, or and Thor is someone who's taught me this just in all the times that we've been working together, if you don't see something that you like that our office is doing, or you see something that you want to see more of, don't be shy. Please let us know. Let us know directly via email. Let us know about the experience you have in the office. Let us know how we're doing. And what you want to see more of. So in addition to having to do all of that value, we have 3 times the number of appeals that we're dealing with in the city and county. Right now, more than the past 25 years is the largest amount of appeals that we've seen in that period of time. And so we're diligently going through that work. But at the same time, it's important to be out here in community. Dr. Honeycutt, I just want to thank you for making this this training real, and I want to thank you for the comments you made about what it takes these days to actually acquire property, and what it takes these days to actually build wealth. And I'm glad you're here, taking advantage of the opportunity and seeing what we can do to do that together. Healthy communities. The value is both physical and spiritual, and that's the work that we do together. As part of our advocacy work, I've been talking about the history of redlining in San Francisco. that no blacks, no mongrels, no Chinese were allowed in certain places so that we could make people aware of the history, because as I mentioned in my swearing-in ceremony, quoting the brother from the Fillmore here, it ain't no mystery if you know your history. And that's part of the advocacy work that I take very seriously as well, in addition to all of that work. So I just wanted to share with you my name, my face, so that you know that you have someone to come to, or if you have friends that need something. And the Commissioner, Linda Richardson, has always taught me that as well in all of our work together, both in public housing and in economic development. So thank you for that. But Dr. Honeycutt, if I may, I wanted to present you with a certificate of honor and appreciation for doing this real work and helping organize all of us and making it possible, because this matters. And I just want to honor you, your advocacy, your commitment, because the city and county of San Francisco would not be as strong as it is if not for what you bring to us every single day. And the commitment that you have in your public service and advocacy is so inspirational and so important for the health of our city. And so thank you from all of us. A philanthropic program to create estate planning, free or low-cost estate plannings to focus on Black and brown households. Take advantage of that program. We still have slots open for those of you that might know someone or might need that support directly. It's based on income levels. So at a certain income level, sometimes you're house rich, but you don't have funding otherwise, so zero cost for what would be a $3,000 or $3,500 value for an estate plan. With $600,000 in philanthropic funding that we got, we've been doing this work for the past 2 years. So I just wanted to make sure that you're taking advantage of that. And if the slots are gone by when you or someone else needs to take advantage of it, Housing Economic Rights Advocates does provide those services as well. So we're very, very happy that I got this letter from a woman who said, you know, I was putting this off forever. I saw you had a free or low-cost program. I took advantage of it. I'm so grateful that I did, because now I'm settled and I can breathe and my estate planning is done. So please do, if you have any questions, reach out to me and reach out to Tina. Thank you, Dr. Honeycutt.
Bring up the panel. So if we could have our panelists, please pick your favorite chair, and we will talk about generational wealth. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, and I'm going to grab a seat next to you here, and as I do, I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself, the company that you're with, and yeah, we'll just start there, and we can hand it on down and do a round robin.
Thank you, Tia. I'm happy to be here. My name is Joanne Zinganan. I am a financial educator with Financial Beginnings and a financial coach with my own business, Financial Healing. Thank you for having me.
Hello, everybody. Thanks again, Tia. Again, my name is Anthony Stafford with Umpqua Bank. I work in the community lending space with the new merger with Columbia Bank. As a result of that, it birthed the new community benefits agreement. As a result of that, our organization put in a community lending group, which is I'm a part of. I'm boots on the ground here. I service all of California, Nevada, and Arizona.
I'm Thor Kozlowski. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure, the former redevelopment agency, and I'm a Pisces. Thank you.
Happy Black History Month, everybody. My name is Rudy. I'm the Executive Director of a violence prevention organization that started 30 years right here in Frisco called United Players. I'm born and raised. I'm a native from San Francisco. I'm from the South of Market, where the most expensive land is at. Born and raised. And I'm a Niner fan.
Well, I'm really excited to ask them a few questions in terms of wealth building and creation. So, you know, we'll jump right into it. For Joanne, a very basic and important question. How can I save when I don't have any money?
Thank you. Well, there are many ways. Some are harder than others, but very basically, how can you cut on expenses as much as you can? I know that already is a very hard thing to do when food is so expensive, inflation is rising, and everything is just expensive. So I recognize that. So then at the same time, can you increase your income? Are there things that you can sell? Are there goods in your home that you don't need anymore that somebody else might have use for? Is there a service or an expertise that you have that you can charge your community for and that they might need? So doing the same things, or doing those two things at the same time, decreasing expenses while you increase your income somehow. Make it work. You might have to make some sacrifices here and there, but save that money, build that emergency fund, and save for your goals. It is absolutely possible, even with little resources that you might have.
Love it. So it's the whole concept of the side hustle, right? Like it might start as a side hustle and then turn into your main hustle. Right?
Exactly.
As you realize, so that's a great idea. Another question I had for you is, sometimes you get stuck. So do you feel like a personal loan is a good idea?
There are times when a personal loan might help your financial situation, but just remember that it can get very expensive. A personal loan can be used for many things. Most commonly, it might be used for paying off credit card debt, right? Credit card debt is very, very expensive. It's one of the most expensive debts out there. It can go up to 29-30%. Whereas if you borrowed that money through a personal loan to pay that credit card debt instead, let's say that you have $10K in credit card debt, you don't want to be paying that $10K when it's still on your credit card. You're going to be paying a lot in interest. So that's a situation where I would recommend a personal loan, which can be anywhere between 5 to 15%. That's way lower, but still very expensive. So I would say it's your last resort, but it can get you to a place of debt freedom if you have high interest credit debt rather.
Right, and it sounds like a good short-term way of relieving yourself of that high-interest credit card debt. But obviously, the goal isn't to take the personal loan, pay off your credit cards, and then charge your credit cards back up again.
Right, yeah, throw those credit cards away.
Right, all right. Love it. Well, I have a question for Anthony, since we're talking about loans and debt. How much money does it take to buy a house?
Great question. I think kind of what you alluded to in your presentation, Tia, is that down payment assistance is obviously there's a lot of resources that are out there, and I encourage you to do your research if you are in the market to buy. For us, we have a proprietary loan with an Umpqua bank, which requires just a minimum of $1,000. So there's, like I said, Cal Haffa, as she mentioned in her presentation, they have the Dream for All program, which can get up to $150,000 or 20%, whatever's higher. So there's a lot of resources. On top of that, you can layer financing with your local city. Here in San Francisco, city and county, you can check their resources. So you can layer on top of resources that banks have. And I always encourage you to talk to several different banks, because the banks have different products that might be better fit for you specifically. So, yeah.
Love it. And generally, when you work with folks, how long does it take to get ready?
I think that's really on a case-by-case basis, Tia. I think in terms of every client is different. I think every goals are different. Like for example, if a client's looking to buy as a first-time home buyer, they might be ready to go now. They might be mortgage ready, credit-wise, collateral in terms of down payment, versus some clients that maybe need to work on their credit. They might be partnering with is Joanne's organization, Financial Beginnings, that we partner with at Umpqua Bank, that can get them and enhance their ability to be ready. Whether it be down the line.
Love it. And speaking of affordable housing, Thor, what has your experience been with your affordable housing journey?
Well, I've had a variety of experience with affordable housing, both personal, professional. I was born in San Francisco, so I'm a San Francisco native. We moved out when I was 4, but I grew up in New York City in an area that was primarily low income. We lived in rent control housing, which in New York is a little different than San Francisco. but most of the folks who lived in the building that I lived in were low income. And the neighborhood I grew up in was racked by the crack epidemic. There were abandoned buildings on our block, and had some friends who lived in an abandoned building, which blew my mind. It didn't seem very strange. It was just like camping indoors. They had no utilities, no water, no electricity, and they would cook by campfire. But it was normal to us. We just kind of walk around, and just kids playing in the street. They lived there for years, and they ended up saving enough money to move out and buy in the suburbs in Long Island. So it was just an interesting way to see how living in a low-income community, you can save and buy something. The rest of it is interesting in that I eventually moved out to San Francisco. As I mentioned before, I'm the executive director of OCII, as it's called, Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure. And since 1948, we've had 20 different project areas. Project areas are geographical areas where we do master planning and development, affordable housing, parks, and streets. Most infamously, we did the Western Addition project area where we displaced thousands of residents and hundreds of businesses. But history is very instructive. We don't do work like that anymore. The Bayview Hunters Point redevelopment plan is a case example where a decade of community planning went into actually doing the work. And the idea of having affordable housing that is a gateway to growing wealth, we make affordable housing that is affordable to anyone who has a full-time job earning minimum wage. So primarily 50% of area median income, and let me be specific about what that means for folks. $72,000 a year is 50% of area median income for a family of 4. That is exactly minimum wage for 2 working adults and 2 kids. So if you have a family, you can come into our housing. We also have programs, contract compliance, small business hiring, local hiring programs where we require 50% of the contracting on our projects to go towards San Francisco businesses and to hire locally, San Francisco residents. Since 2012, we've had contracts authorized through our projects of $6 billion. 160 million of that has gone to San Francisco residents. 1 billion of that has gone to San Francisco businesses. That's an incredible economic development strategy that we deploy. So we make housing that is affordable to virtually every San Franciscan who wants to work, and we give them job opportunities so that they can eventually live wherever they would like.
Amazing. Amazing. And any lessons learned or advice that you'd like to give for other folks that maybe are interested in development or affordable housing, looking back at your career journey?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I want to plug is we have an incredible home ownership opportunity occurring in Mission Bay, which is one of our redevelopment project areas. 400 China Basin. We are about to launch the marketing and sales of that project over the next 3 or 4 months. So if you just go to the city's website, which is housing, let me get the URL right, housing.sfgov.org. That's housing.sfgov.org, or just Google Mayor's Office of Housing and you'll get to their website. You need to register, or you can go to 400chinabasin.com, which is the address, 400chinabasin.com. 1 to 3 bedroom units selling at $200,000 to $500,000. So 1 to 3 bedroom units. So almost any size family can fit there, again at an accessible price point of $200,000. We think that that is a very good way to be giving folks affordable places to stay. My entrepreneurial journey, I worked in 8 years in the private sector here in San Francisco. Some of the advice I would give folks is find what your superpower is. I had a very difficult time in school. I eventually went and graduated from business school because I learned that if you just keep trying, you keep studying, you keep going at it, you'll eventually get it. And if you fall down 7 times, get up 8, right? So eventually I learned that if I just did it a little longer than other people, I would get it. I thought I was dumb because I didn't get it as fast as they did. But everybody learns at different speeds. I just know I gotta work harder, so I do. And so I outwork everybody, and that wins all the time. I just wanna let you know that. So eventually I started I was working on the Hunters Point Shipyard project for 10 years, and I started my entrepreneurial journey. Found an opportunity working with an investor to do private development here in the city. And if you look for opportunities, you know your strengths, you have to find your strengths, and sometimes it's a hard road. If you just keep looking for those opportunities won't find you, so you gotta go out and get them. And the secret is, once you get that opportunity, keep working until you get your next one. Work your way out of every opportunity to the next one. And so my advice as entrepreneur is just to keep the momentum, keep pushing past every barrier that you encounter, because eventually on the other side of it is an opportunity for you.
Love it. Thank you so much, Thor. Rudy. Bang, bang.
Not again.
So, Rudy, I'm so excited to talk to you and with you about what you did for your community. So can you please explain to us what you did, how you did it, and all the above?
Sure. So first of all, as a kid, I used to like to play Monopoly, right? And in my neighborhood, in the South of Market, we was one of the first neighborhoods besides Fillmore to be gentrified. So I paid attention when I was young, right? And as I came and I started getting into the field that I was in, I started noticing that in order for us to survive and to be stable as a nonprofit organization in the community where I'm born and raised in, that I destroyed when I did a whole lot of drug dealing in my neighborhood, a lot of stuff that was against the law, right? I figured how to own land for my people. And so, when we moved to our building in my neighborhood that was vacant, right? I was able to figure out how to buy it. So in 2008, I moved in the building, 1038 Howard Street, the Players Club, right? We was in there for 7 years, but I figured how to build relationships and learn to play the game that the man was playing. Right? Because you got to understand, in our neighborhood, it's the most development going on in San Francisco, South of Market. I'm not talking about Hunters Point. I'm not talking about Film. I'm talking about the South of Market, where right now we have the most expensive square feet in the country. So, 2008, I moved in the building. Within 7 years, I was able to leverage relationships. Not no sellout relationships. I learned how to meet good brothers like Joaquin Torres, who was down for the people and wanted to help the people so we could be stable. Because we have a 120-year history of Filipinos in our neighborhood. And a gang of them got pushed out. I still live there. So, like I said, I played Monopoly. I learned how to purchase a building. I got my first building, right, in 8 years. And I just bought another one last year, 2 doors down, 6,400 square feet. And so it's not, the building that we're purchasing is not just for me, it's for my kids' kids, and their kids, because we own the land. It's our people. And I see a lot of other buildings that's vacant, right? And I'm a hustler. I started hustling, man. Hey, Reg, tell him we go back like a hot bowl of grits. That's my guy from Betrayal Hill. I used to go up on the hill, it was so dope. But I do what I need to do, right? Everything I do is legal, though. I learned how to build relationships. I learned how to meet the right people. And everything that we do, it is 100% with no cut, for real. Don't get it twisted, I just dress like this. I ain't thinking 4 blocks, I'm thinking 4 continents now. I was able to travel the world. We started our organization right here in Frisco, and now we are worldwide. You're dealing with a real player with a passport.
So, Rudy,
they didn't hear me though.
Rudy, tell me about your organization.
So United Players originated from gang violence, turf violence at Balboa High School in 1994 between blacks and Filipinos. And all I did is what we do in a big fight in the yard, you bring people together. Ms. Honeycutt talked about how do you deal things. You have communication and understanding. We brought the guys around the table, and all the young men who was in the violence came up with all the solutions to stop the violence. If you got a toothache, you ain't gonna go to a mechanic, you don't go to a dentist. So how do you deal with violence? You deal with the people who was in it. And they came up with all the solutions. And so fast forward, 30 years later, we worldwide and we own land and we continue to buy land. And I'm gonna buy buildings in our neighborhood, Ace. I'm gonna buy this building across the street and it's gonna be a high school for our kids. Then I'm gonna buy that building next to that one because they know that we stakeholders and we for real. And the police know we for real, right? Because they don't protect the people, they protect the property. So like I said, I'll just dress like this.
Amazing, amazing. So, Rudy, tell me, how did you, for the first building, how did you like pull resources, or were there like community leaders that you went to with your idea? How did you do that?
I absolutely do what you just said. So I knew our district supervisor in the neighborhood had a connection to meet with the developers. So I sat with her and I said, hey, look, I need you to connect me with these people because once they start building, they have to talk to the natives that live there. And if we don't like what their project is, we can shut it down. I bring my whole army from the South to Market who are voters, and we would tell them, nope, you can't build this unless you meet us halfway and you negotiate what we want for our neighborhood. And so the rec center that's being built right now in our neighborhood, right? We just cut the brick, we just broke ground for it the other day. That's being built from development money. The school in our neighborhood, the elementary and the middle school, they was able to provide money to put mental health in our school. So it was about learning to build relationships, leveraging all the right people. From the mayor to Joaquin and them, to the district supervisors, to the people on the ground floor. And that's what we did. It ain't what you know, it's who you know. Better yet, who even like you. And guess what? They either gonna love me, they gonna hate me. But I love me, so it don't matter.
And I have to say, what a great city San Francisco is, right? That they have these resources available where we can work on building our communities and, you know, folks that are here to support us. So that's really very exciting. Rudy, anything else you'd like to say?
I just want to say I appreciate that we having these events. But if you look right over there, there's all kids having an event. You're all adults. We got to figure out how we can bring us together. Because we shouldn't be in different rooms. We should be in the same room.
Love it. Thank you, Rudy. Thor, any thoughts for us? Whatever you want to talk about.
Whatever I want to talk about. Okay, let's see. I had a few notes I wanted to talk about in terms. Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
Here about kind of riffing off what Rudy was just talking about meeting people, and it's about this whole concept of wealth generation and retention. I think poverty starts in the mind. Your environment, of course, has an economic circumstance, but you let it get in your mind. I think the pastor earlier talked about it. You let it get in your mind, and it becomes more permanent and hard to overcome. So I was told you need to invest in yourself. First off, make yourself better. Pull down the mask for you. Because as soon as you're strong enough, you can reach out and help somebody else. You can accumulate enough to do more in the neighborhood and have what they call the flywheel approach, which is a leverage where you can actually, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 5 and 10. So invest in yourself, learn a skill, get an education. School changed my life. It opened up knowledge of the world to me. It took me 9 years to graduate from undergrad college because it was just tough. But I just did not stop going to school. I was working, and then eventually I got a job at the mayor's office, working for the first black mayor of New York City, David Dinkins, who, rest in peace, passed away a couple years ago. And I just was working around all these brilliant people. And I said, there's all these smart black people? Where are they? They're right there. They're helping this great mayor transform the city. And I got motivated, and I found the strength in myself. But I had to invest in myself to even understand what was going on around me. So grow yourself, invest in yourself. Like I had said, opportunities don't come looking for you. You have to chase them. So you got to be prepared for when you catch up with that opportunity. It'll look like luck, but it wasn't luck. Luck favors the prepared. Luck will pass you by in 5 minutes if you're not ready. So invest in yourself, be ready, chase that opportunity, because eventually you'll get it if you don't stop chasing it. And when you get that opportunity, work your way out of that opportunity to the next opportunity. And that is the secret of success, I think. It's what I've tried to deploy in my own life. And when I see folks who I admire, I see the same model being them using that same model. So I just wanted to offer that up.
I love